Hello, my name is Jabeen Zaidi, founder and CEO of SpringAI, and I'm honored to be presenting to you on the BA podcast. My special guest today is Andrew Pierce. He is the CEO of Mint, a company known for designing high-impact retail experiences, including experiential and immersive and intelligent design. Andrew has spent decades working at the intersection of sensory experience, retail design, and analytical data. And he is here to give us his expert insights of decades of work with retail and brands on how this has impacting the world today, and also insights into how the natural shift has really evolved. So I'm excited to dive into that discussion. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So what I'd love to have you share is how, from the decades that you've been working, what are the main insights and the trends that you've seen from how previous retail experience and traditional, retail spaces have been and what they're evolving to?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's an important one. First of all, let's start with this. Everybody asks me, and I'm sure they ask you, is retail dead?
Yes.
Right?
It's a good question.
And the answer is emphatically no. It's changing and evolving. And what we preach to our clients and to the world is that experience is the new retail currency.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. Yes, exactly. Can you explain a little bit? Yeah. What is experiential retail? Let's start with that.
I like to narrow it down to something very simple. It's something that leaves the consumer with a memory, something that happened that was fun, unexpected, memorable, that they carry with them. Mm-hmm. And it helps them to remember the brand, their products and services. So I think, to me, if it's something memorable, and your product, by the way, is a great example of that, people remember it because they remember what happened when they were engaged with it. Yeah,
great. So going into how you think the past or the traditional retail has now evolved, and it's almost, I would say, it is going to an existential crisis where a lot of people do say, well, retail is dead, malls are closing, they're shutting down, no one's going to shop in person anymore. But I'm like you. I believe that, the physical world, we're all physical people. The physical world is not just going to disappear and everyone go and disappear into their digital phones. I believe that, the physical world is just going to change. And so how do you see it changing from what it has been?
Well,
is currently.
We like to point at the Omni-channel experience as what's really important to the consumer, because you said something, and that is that human beings want to interact with other human beings. Mm-hmm. That is just who we are, our DNA, right? So it's important, as part of the omni-channel experience, everybody starts out their shopping experience online, mm-hmm. whether it's researching, checking out pricing, whatever. And so what we need to do is, obviously give the consumer a compelling reason to want to get off their couch or their chair and go to the retail store. Mm-hmm. And omni-channel requires that the experience and the way that they see the brand and the products and services online is carried into the retail.
Yes.
And that requires, like what you guys have and like what we offer to our clients, which is usually some sort of a digital interactive experience that carries forward that experience that they had online.
So a seamless transition from that can actually motivate them from browsing easily on their phone to actually pulling them into wanting to experience that in person.
Yes.
Right? That's what's missing, the draw. And you think that, and that's where we're going, is like the divide and the gap between physical and retail, physical and digital shopping experiences is going to kind of really merge, right? And that's never been possible before, right? I mean,
yes.
You haven't really been able to capture that. And I would actually like to know a little bit about the internal dynamics, because I've heard something from someone that the digital e-commerce team of a store hates the physical commerce and sales teams of that store, because they each want to put each other out of business. Like, that was something I heard that I was like, that's really funny, but I actually wanted to understand that, because it's they're both part of the same team, the same company, same brand. They both, but they're almost at a clash with each
Sure.
other. So I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah, it's
on
almost
that.
like finance and marketing.
Yeah,
right?
it's like the departments will clash. And I just thought that was really interesting. So I'd love your thoughts on what you think.
Yeah, to me, so you and I mentioned the word Phygital this week, right?
Yeah.
Which is the combination of a physical world and a digital world. And that is very important and very on point to what needs to happen. It isn't about technology or people. It's the combination of the two. Today's the biggest growing sector of the buying public today is the younger generation.
Gen Z.
100%. And their social skills have eroded. Like they will communicate across the room within their own family on a digital device versus having a conversation. They're almost uncomfortable in a lot of cases socially, right? So it is important to have a digital interface where people can take what they're comfortable with, which is almost be like they're online, but actually seeing and trying and feeling and getting all their senses engaged with the product. But it can't just be that. It has to be somebody in the store in most cases that has the ability to influence that to help them, so you combine the two worlds.
And to maybe the listeners and viewers might see that this is impossible. How can you give the sensory physical experience in a digital way, right? And that's where we're gonna now start. I'd love to start this conversation into AI technology, because that's where my expertise is. Like, I've been building AI creative software for over 3 years now, and in terms of trying to understand how people interact with this technology and how can it actually help businesses to convey, the marketing that they want. And what I'd like to introduce with Andrew and talk about is how this shift is crucial, natural almost evolution of what was needed. And it's called an immersive try-on experience. The product is called Spring. And what we're doing is we're allowing people to actually naturally try on by just selecting from the pictures of the garments or the golf clubs or the ski masks, anything that they're trying to just envision for themselves is an immersive shopping experience that takes their photo and immediately turns them into a visual with that product. And a lot of people are saying, why shouldn't this just be an app? Why does this need to be something that has to be in the physical world, which is how we are launching it. We are launching these as actual physical smart mirrors that are installed inside these retail spaces. And so what we're doing is we're trying to merge the merchandising aspect of inventory to then the customer experience to be able to try it on, and into helping the buying process and buying decision at the same time entertaining. And that's what I'd love for you to shine light on. When you heard about this technology and when you saw that this is something that is coming, like, what was your initial reaction? I'd love to know and how you think that this is something that can fit.
Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. I truly believe, as we've talked about, that it's a great technology and that it is so relevant to where retail needs to go. AI has accelerated the pace of people wanting to talk about these things that have existed for a while, but they haven't wanted to talk about them. And now they're almost forced to, because everyone has got this pressure of, well, I've got to embrace AI. I can't be that person that's like, I don't want anything to do with it, right? Because it is changing the world very, very quickly. Your product, and this is a key thing that I think is probably at the heart of it, is the most important. It personalizes the experience for the consumer. It's not, you're allowing somebody to see how they're going to look with, a piece of jewelry on or a piece of clothing or whatever it may be, and give them options. And you're personalizing the experience. That personalization will result in brand loyalty and sales.
Two of the things that I remember you mentioned are maybe not sales, but brand loyalty as an all-time low.
Yes.
That you mentioned.
Brand loyalty is at an all-time low. People will jump brands If they see the shiny lure, they'll bite on it and they'll go there. And brand loyalty is critical. If you do not have brand loyalty, it doesn't really matter what products you have, what your prices are, how they relate to the competition. So, but the experience is what delivers the brand loyalty, and the brand loyalty is what delivers the sales. The old way of doing things was focusing on the sales.
And the amount of inventory that you have, the amount of space, right?
Now, if you deliver the experience, the success will follow.
Yeah, that's very critical. I think that goes back into the psychology of the buying decisions of the current consumer market, which has shifted, right? We'll talk a little bit about Gen Z mentality of, for example, I came across a study that said, when Gen Z decide to purchase something, they're no longer questioning whether or not that product is good. They're questioning whether or not that product is me. Is that for me? Can I wear it? Does that fit in my life? Would I want to talk about it to my friends or post about it? Is it a part of my identity? And that had been very difficult. And that's where influencer marketing started. That's where, there's so much more campaigns to have authentic user feedback, because it was more successful than fancy, shiny ads by having real people feel, giving their success stories for it. And so, but it had been physically impossible to give that feeling or that personalization to a person, except by now this AI technology.
Yep.
And I'd love your thoughts on, how you think that would really make a difference in terms of truly allowing brands to then tell their story in a more deeper way by instantly connecting. I mean, what are your thoughts on how do you think that the brands and retailers would embrace this? Would they?
I think one of the key things we can't do, and brands and retailers can't do, is talk about how they're using AI actively to the consumer. It should be working in the background and driving the results and personalizing it and all of that. But customers really don't want to think that this is AI.
Yeah.
You got to make it natural, organic. It's got to feel like this display just somehow knows me without me coming out and saying that it's an AI-driven machine or a solution, right? So
kind of invisible, like it should be
totally invisible. Like we've talked about that. Your brand is great, class, right? Doesn't say anything about AI on it, but we all know AI is a critical component and what makes it so great. So that's a great example of using the technology, but not leading with it in terms of that's part of my solution.
Yeah, I agree. The stigma and the perception of AI has been scary for a lot of people. That is something I wanted to touch on, about going back to how the brands and retailers are currently struggling. I want to deeply identify those specific pain points. You mentioned some things about square footage and inventory and staffing and all the overhead cost. I'd like you to go into that, because that's something that I feel like can then directly be reflected into a solution where glass can potentially make some type of impact. But before we go there, I'd love you to dive into those things.
Sure. And it's an awesome question. It's something we preach every day. Historically, brands have felt like they need to have all of their products in the store or in their stock room that can easily be grabbed, right? And that puts a massive constraint on inventory control. It's hard to know what you should have, how much of it, and do I need every SKU that we sell in the store? That also means you've got a bigger store than probably you need. And so retail rents are not cheap. Retail construction is not cheap. So if you take a traditional retailer, let's say they had usually historically at a 5,000 square foot store. What we're preaching to people is you don't need 5,000 anymore. You need 1,000, maybe 2,000. Because with technology like yours, you never miss a sale. You may not physically have the item there.
Or the sizes,
Or the sizes, right. So the ability for someone to walk in and see every product that you have, show how it looks on them, just like they can at home, but at home they don't get that experience, right? They can see all the different SKUs and the colors. Okay. But
Yeah, right. Like 100% of the time, people would say they would have rather seen it on them before they bought it.
100%.
And that's just that. Why are return rates so high, right? Like I think I heard that like Amazon at one point was charging people to return during Christmas season because it was such a high return rate.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And how does that impact the businesses? I mean, like from a financial standpoint, like what are some of the statistics on like the percentages of returns? And because one thing I know is that not everyone even feels comfortable going to the fitting rooms either.
Right.
And so, but they do want to touch and feel that fabric, but then there's a lot of anxieties and frictions around that as well. And so, yeah, talk to me about that.
And even time.
Yeah. Like if you wanted to try 10 things, try taking 10 things into the finger, you just give up by the third.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's what happened to me.
It's just not a clean, easy, frictionless experience.
And it's been like that it's never changed. If you think about it, the fitting room process of the environment has never evolved. There's never been an alternative to that.
And think about the labor of the fitting room experience. Like people having to bring you things, and then you try things on and they don't fit and they bring you something else. And before you know it, whether you purchased or not, they've now got to go take 5-10 things, bring them back to where they were, probably, depending on the item, they clean them up, fold them up, whatever, right? There's a labor cost of all of that. And so your solution is a great example, an interactive digital solution that can show people alternatives and choices and let them make a buying decision without any of that hassle, without any of that overhead. You can cut your store staff, quantity of store staff down. You've got lower overhead, you've got lower inventory costs, and you're not sacrificing sales. I mean, it's kind of perfect.
I want to talk about one last thing because we both are really passionate about it, which is the data. And I think as much as we've solved the problem from the consumer side and also the sales staff and that cost reduction side, the data that has been missing is anyone who had gone into the fitting room, you would have never known, a business would have never known which ones were tried or not, just like you would know which pages were clicked online, and then which of those actually led to a sale. And the interaction of it and how things were grabbing more attention may not have resulted in a purchase, but what if that was the most tried on item, but no one purchased it? What insight would that lock?
Sure.
And so how Glass can possibly solve that? And do you think that's a valuable metric?
Oh, it's invaluable. I mean, if you think about the rest of the business world, take websites you mentioned, great example. When websites first came out, they were just like space for people to put up their stuff, right? But nobody really knew what was going on, what was effective, what wasn't. You can now measure exactly what people are looking at. Are they buying? Which color? All of that stuff, right? Retail doesn't have that.
Yep.
It needs to have that. Like you need to turn, I always say retail has always been more of an art, and it now needs the science.
It needs to become computational, the physical space.
Absolutely. With the analytics like what Glass has, you're able to show the retailer and the brand exactly what's going on in real time, with even alerts that say, hey, you need to pay attention to this because this is the one everyone's looking
at. Low stock
Right. So data is critical, yes.
Great. Well, thank you. I mean, I'd love to end with any closing thoughts on how you think that, what would you recommend any leaders and executives inside the retail space, or even just small business owners and boutiques that what they should be paying attention to, and maybe any advice that you'd like to.
Well, you gotta get off the fence and you gotta start doing stuff. And my advice is always to people is the walk-jog-run mentality. So start trying, start seeing the impact that it's having on your business. Put a solution like yours in some of your stores, measure it against the stores that don't have it, see what the impact is, make any adjustments that you need in your strategy, and then roll it out everywhere, right? Don't go, I mean, as much as you and I would love to sell our stuff to every store for everybody, it's that approach where you take very methodical steps, right? And then that way you're validating what's working, you can see the lift, you can justify the ROI, and
Yeah, I love that. I feel like, we're finally giving light to the blind marketing efforts and blind, retail positioning efforts. Not that it was all, but there was very limited visibility. And I'm excited that me and you are really seeing this, and I hope that this helps others. And we're excited for you all to be able to join us on this podcast. So thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you, everyone.